afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Matt Jordan of KOBI TV NBC5, and I am honored once again to be part of this event. 2020 is a year that will be hard to ever forget as we struggle with the repercussions of COVID-19 and now the recovery from the devastating wildfires. Our community has always been strong, and in times of immense distress, it becomes a safety net to its citizens in their greatest need. I believe that those of us who passionately believe in the power of community are seeing this play out right now. Our strength has always been manifested at the local level. We, as a community, can face anything. We will recover from COVID. We will recover from the wildfires. This is due to the fortitude and resilience of people like you, and we look out for each other. Today's event is about raising awareness of how prevalent child abuse is here in our valley, and how we can all work together to bring hope and healing to the children who suffer abuse in that community. More than ever, the Children's Advocacy Center needs your support and help to continue providing the critical services that are needed for our children to recover from abuse. I would like to thank all of you for tuning into this special event right now. Good afternoon. If you please take a moment to leave your personal and business lives behind you. The children of Jackson County need your support. It takes a lot of people who deal with child abuse on a daily basis. It's police officers, prosecutors, doctors, therapists, and so many more. I have to say, I really don't know how they do it. It's hard enough just telling the same stories every day on the news. I can only say that we are all in awe of the work that is done to help the children in our community. There are a few topics that are more difficult to discuss than child abuse, but we have a problem in this community. Abuse is not acceptable, and it needs to be addressed head on. This is a community problem, and it requires all of us, every single person tuning into this event, to stop it. Today is an invitation. It's an invitation to be part of that community response, to make a promise to our children so we can give them the gift of hope and healing. It's also a time to celebrate the CAC's role in our community in stopping child abuse and to help those affected to be healed. Our goal today is to inspire you into being a part of the Children's Advocacy Center and to help intervene in the lives of our children, in our community, and those who suffer from abuse. Your efforts today, your contributions, no matter how small or how large they are, they make the center what it is. It's a grassroots organization that provides evidence-based interventions that transform the lives of the children we serve. The CAC would like to give a very special thank you to Jim Collier for his generous support of the Children's Advocacy Center and for his support of today's event. Jim is a bright light in our community, and we value his support, not only to the CAC, but to his support of this community. We would also like to thank the contributing sponsors who made today possible. That's Southern Oregon Pediatrics, General Credit Service, John L. Scott Real Estate, John and Diane Williams Englehart, Rogue Credit Union, KOBI TV, NBC5, Impact Publications, and Mustard Press. Thank you all for your support of the Children's Advocacy Center. We would also like to thank the staff members of the CAC, the board members, the advisory council, and the CAC's many incredible volunteers. We would also like to thank all of the individuals who've taken the Protect Our Children Child Abuse Prevention training. If you'd like to learn more about this information on the training itself, you can contact Lacey Elliott. Her email, Elliott, so LELLIOTT @cacjc.org. Without all of these amazing individuals, the Children's Advocacy Center would not be able to do what they do to help the children of our community. Now today, our first guest speaker is Eric Rodriguez. Eric is president of the board of directors for the Children's Advocacy Center. Eric worked 26 years as a state trooper, with 6 of those years in Medford and Central Point. Eric responded to more calls than he ever wanted to remember of children being abused or neglected. Eric soon learned that each of those instances would be hard to forget. After retirement from the Oregon State Police, Eric became the co-director of campus safety at Southern Oregon University and a CASA volunteer. 6 years ago, Eric was recruited for the CAC board, and he's been honored to work with the other board members and executive directors to support children in our community. Eric?
Thank you, Matt. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone, and on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Children's Advocacy Center, welcome to the Cherish a Child virtual event. We value the relationships and friendships we have with you and our common bond to support the work of the Children's Advocacy Center. Thank you all for being part of today's event, and we look forward to being able to gather together in person soon. I would like to add my thanks and the board's thanks for the hard work of our staff and volunteers who organize this event, as well as all the staff at the Children's Advocacy Center that have continued to provide critical services to children in these challenging times. We have a powerful speaker today to raise awareness about child abuse and an opportunity for you to ask questions. I'd like to introduce our Executive Director, Tammy Pitson. Tammy has been the Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Center of Jackson County for 7 years. She has worked for 30 years intervening in child abuse cases, with the last 18 of those years in the Children's Advocacy Center movement. Currently, she serves on the Child Abuse Multidisciplinary Intervention Fund Advisory Council and the Child's Justice Act Advisory Council under the Oregon Department of Justice. Tammy?
Hello. It is my honor and privilege to be the Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Center of Jackson County. It's hard to believe I've been in this role for 7 years. Thank you so much for tuning in to our first virtual event. I have written and rewritten my words for today as I've come to dislike the phrases unprecedented times and new normal. Neither of them fully describes what it is and what has been happening in our community. Instead, I will say that this year has been like no other in my 30-year career. Instead, I will acknowledge my heart is breaking as we as a community begin to dig deep to support in the recovery efforts of those who lost their homes in the historic fires that have ravaged through Jackson County. I also want to take a minute to thank all of the first responders who ran towards danger while guiding others out of the pathway of the fire. Many of these first responders are members of our multidisciplinary team. None of these heroic behaviors are new to us who work with them daily. We see them do incredible acts on behalf of the children in our community every day. This year has been full of challenges and obstacles. It's been a year in which we have been given the opportunity to think outside the box, to be nimble in our navigating of uncharted waters and providing critical services, and has shown, unfortunately, how critical our mandatory reporters are in keeping our children safe. I say unfortunately because we've seen the numbers of abuse reports drop in our community, in our state, and across the nation. The National Children's Alliance has reported that across the country, CACs saw 40,000 fewer children during the first part of this year as compared to last year. We have locally seen about 80 children fewer in the first 6 months of the year as compared to last year. This number is not the full story, as the trend has been the last few years an increase in the number of children that we've seen every year. This is terrifying to me. What this means is that there are children in our community who are being abused, who are scared and who need safety, that are unable to get help because they are not around helping adults. Child abuse is being pushed further into silence. What I and other leaders in our community feel will happen is we will see the children we would normally see, and on top of those regular numbers, see a large increase in reports of abuse that is happening right now due to isolation and stress caused by COVID-19 when our children return to school, sports, and other extracurricular activities that put them in front of mandatory reporters. I believe that in times of crisis, and there's been no shortage of those this year, people will either rise to the occasion or fall to despair. I'm incredibly humbled by the rising of our multidisciplinary members and of the staff at the CAC. Through it all, the Children's Advocacy Center and the Jackson County Child Abuse Multidisciplinary Team have continued to respond to abuse allegations. We have continued to provide services. These interventions don't look the same, They include Zoom meetings and masks and face shields, lots of hand sanitizers and Clorox wipes, new technology, and being flexible. I continue to believe that we have the best team in the country working on behalf of our children. In addition to redesigning how we deliver our services, in February, we created an ad hoc committee to begin reviewing and looking at our organization, our policies, our procedures, and our HR practices through the lens of diversity and inclusiveness. This committee was made up of staff, board, volunteers, MDT partners, agency partners, and community members. We are in the process of rewriting many of our policies based on their recommendations. Our standing board cultural competency committee continues to work on other ways to ensure diversity, equity, and inclusiveness throughout our organization. We have recently added a third forensic interviewer case manager to our intake team in an effort to be ready to respond to the increased demand for services that we anticipate coming in our post-COVID future. Additionally, we have continued to develop our pediatric sexual assault nurse examiners program and have expanded our response to include both Rogue Regional Medical Center and Providence Medford Hospital Center. In response to the tragic fires that ripped through parts of our county, we have made some adaptations to our processes in order to adequately respond to the complex barriers that will rise for the families that we serve. Our community outreach coordinator will be working in connection with our family support team to assist in coordination of services that will help remove obstacles and barriers that will prevent them from adequately engaging in the investigation, recovery, and healing process that we know is so critical to provide children who have suffered from abuse for better lifetime outcomes. I want to share a story that really illustrates why I believe so much in the work of the CAC and the multidisciplinary team. Some of you know that in my past life I was a forensic interviewer. I have shared in the past stories of the kids I have worked with. This is the story of a young girl who had some delays and a Thanksgiving celebration that turned into a mother's worst nightmare. The young girl had been sexually abused by a cousin during the Thanksgiving Day celebration. It was a holiday, and Mom was protective, and there was a lot of crazy chaos family drama, so it was decided that waiting a day for things to calm might be the best plan. When the family came into the CAC, Mom was very nervous and very emotional. She and her husband recounted how they were alerted to what had happened while the children were out of the adults' presence. Mom was very worried that her daughter's speech delays would not allow me to understand what she was saying, and really felt like she needed to be in the room with me while I was talking to her. I assured her that I had spoken to others with speech delays and explained the importance of keeping the fidelity of the process. In the interview, the daughter very clearly shared with me what had happened. It was not perfect. There were parts that I did not understand. However, her interview and those of the witnesses were enough for an arrest to be made and for a successful guilty plea to be accepted. There was therapy that followed. The mom received support and assistance through parents group and therapy. There was a medical evaluation, and there was an opportunity for healing. There was a very long court process that ended with an eventual plea. This young lady today plays volleyball, soccer, and was a cheerleader. She has maintained good grades, even with her early delays and trauma. Her parents helped her to thrive and surpass all expectations because they engaged in services that were offered to them at the Children's Advocacy Center. Because of that engagement, they helped to build resiliency and change her predicted outcomes. Today, she is 19. She's a successful young adult. She is successful because the Children's Advocacy Center multidisciplinary, holistic approach to intervention works, and because her parents believed in it and engaged in it on her behalf a long time ago. A very rocky start turned into a very happily ever after because of the coordinated effort of a team of professionals and some rock star parents. Our commitment is to continue to provide the evidence-based interventions to the children referred to us for services. We continue to provide community education on keeping children safe from abuse. We will continue to provide a place where small voices are heard. But we can't do it alone. We need your continued support. We have always depended on donations and grants in order to provide these services. We do not charge families, but there is a price for the services that we provide. Later in the program, we will humbly be asking for you to partner with us to provide safety, hope, and healing to the children we serve. We know that we can't do this without you. We know that without our interventions, without the crucial healing services that we provide, the children in our community who suffer abuse will grow up in trauma. This trauma will grow into chronic health conditions, depression, and anxiety if left untreated. We know that in many cases, this trauma will lead to victims coming in contact with the criminal justice system on the other side and perhaps develop violent behaviors. We can change the trajectory that abuse pushes children forward on and help them find healthier and safer outcomes, but we can't do it without you. We're going to watch a video created by Lithia for Kids, and it's titled A Day in the Life. Thank you to all of the child abuse professionals and volunteers who took the time out of their workday to be part of the filming. Please consider this as an invitation for each of us to walk for a few minutes in the footsteps of the children and families who depend on these vital services.
It is 8 a.m. at the Children's Advocacy Center. The center does not open for another 30 minutes, but a teen girl and her mother are waiting in their car for the doors to open. Yesterday, this teenager shared a secret about something that has been happening to her for far too long. The police were called, and now she is at the center so she can have her forensic interview. She is lucky. It will happen at a warm, home-like center with caring professionals. What she shares today will impact her family and will change her life forever. Today, the abuse will stop. She will be interviewed by a specially trained forensic interviewer, and she and her mother will receive services that will begin a path of healing. It all begins with this interview.
The detective initiates the contact with Department of Human Services, with the Children's Advocacy Center, and we get the ball rolling on involving the CAC in the investigation. So this could mean if the situation is severe enough, it could mean a CAC examination and interview at any hour of the day. When you're dealing with child victims, you can't approach a child victim the same way that you approach an adult victim. This is the nationally advocated best practice for doing this, and it's great that Jackson County CAC has this.
A young family is coming in for a medical exam. Their baby was hurt while in the care of a family friend, and the injuries need to be examined by a doctor who specializes in child abuse. The exam includes a full medical assessment of the child, and after the exam, the family will receive wraparound services to help them heal.
Sometimes the misdiagnosis of a child means that a child will return to their parent who may be abusing them, who now will face worse consequences when they go home because the state's not able to intervene because they don't have the evidence they need. This year I came into my office and found a worker trying to console a young child. She was pre-verbal, she was on the floor, she could not be consoled, she looked like she was in pain, and I thought that possibly she had drugs in her system. And all I could think about is, we need a doctor to see this child now. We're not doctors at child welfare. We don't know what's wrong with these kids, sometimes physically what ails them. We don't know. But we're lucky that we've got a place that we can go to almost immediately with a doctor who is specialized and trained to recognize those signs of physical abuse or sex abuse or chronic neglect. And that gives us the ability to act that very same day to help protect a child.
It is 1:30, and professionals from all parts of Jackson County are convening at the center for the multidisciplinary team meeting. Here, all cases of child abuse are staffed each week. Hard stories are shared here by those who work directly with the families.
The multidisciplinary team that's held at the Children's Advocacy Center is Jackson County's Child Abuse Multidisciplinary Team. And that's a team of professionals, so it includes counselors, police officers, prosecutors, people from the school, advocates from my office, advocates from the community, and a variety of other people who come together to look at child abuse cases. So fatality review is where we review every child fatality in Jackson County, where a child has died in Jackson County, and we don't have evidence to believe it was just they died of natural causes. I don't think that you could pay people enough to sit around and talk about actual children who've died. Everybody in the room is hoping that a gem will come out of it where we can find a way to make sure this never happens again.
Grand jury is now in session. Grand jury for child abuse cases happens at the center, providing a caring environment for children during what can be a frightening and difficult process. Today, an 8-year-old girl is testifying about the abuse she has suffered. This is a day she may never forget, the day her abuser is held accountable.
I walked through the doors of the Children's Advocacy Center 25 years ago. I didn't want to have to say what had happened because then it was real again. But I knew I had to in order to protect myself, my siblings, my family, and other children. The day I went to court, I first met at the Children's Advocacy Center, and before I went to court, a lady came in the room and gave me a blue box, and inside of it was a crystal heart. And I took that crystal heart with me, and I had it in my hand as I walked to the courthouse, and I had it in my hand as I took my oath, and I had it in my hand during my testimony. Without the Children's Advocacy Center, I would not have had the support. It is possible that I might not have even gotten justice, that my abuser went to jail.
In the therapy department, a family therapy session is in process. Many children at the center receive long-term counseling to help them heal from the devastating effects of abuse. Non-offending family members receive support and participate in family therapy sessions. Hundreds of children each year receive services from the center's therapists, services which provide hope and healing, and which sometimes literally save their lives.
If the CAC didn't exist, I think we'd be lost. We need the CAC. It's such an important piece of the puzzle.
I like to think about people who donate and help out the Advocacy Center as my silent partner in every call we go out on. If it weren't for folks in the community who cared enough to support the Advocacy Center, we wouldn't have those resources. You don't have to be there with the child and hold that child's hand. We will do that for you, and I just thank you for your support.
It is 7:30 p.m., and the day is finally coming to a close. Child abuse, however, does not end when the sun goes down. It is happening all the time in this community, and tomorrow will bring new children who desperately need the services provided at the center. This only happens through community support.
Some of these kids have been waiting a long time to tell their story to an adult, and an adult who has power to help them.
obviously an amazing representation of what happens here just about every day and the good work that goes on at the Children's Advocacy Center. Today, we are very proud to have Margaret Holzer, our special guest speaker. Margaret is a double Olympian and a 3-time Olympic medalist in swimming, as well as a former world record holder. Originally from Huntsville, Alabama, Margaret earned a degree in psychology with a minor in criminology from Auburn University. There, she was a 22-time All-American and a 6-time national champion. Overcoming a childhood sexual abuse, Margaret is living proof of her conviction that if you put your mind to it, anything is possible. After Margaret's speech, we will open up for questions. Margaret?
Hi, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for having me, and I am so excited that people are taking time out of their day to listen to my story. So my story began in Huntsville, Alabama at the age of 5 years old. I was sexually abused by a good friend of mine's father. So like most people, I learned about stranger danger in school. And that's a really good lesson, but unfortunately, that's not what happens the bulk of the time. This was someone I knew. This was someone I trusted. This was somebody I liked. This was the cool dad. This was the dad that of all of my friends' parents, I liked probably the most and thought was the coolest. When we would hang out, this was somebody that was always an active part of the game. When I would go to this friend's house, my parents, like most parents, they wanted me to mind my manners. They were trying to teach me good life skills. So the first thing they would tell me upon, leaving the house was mind so-and-so's parents, listen to them, do what they say. And this isn't a bad lesson. My parents were trying to teach me good manners, and let's be honest, they wanted me to be invited over again so, they could get a break from time to time. But what they were doing without realizing it was they were automatically telling me to trust this person that I didn't know. And they were automatically putting this person in a position of power. Well, the reality is this person's already in a position of power because you're a little kid and you're kind of small and they're a lot bigger than you. So you're probably going to trust them right off the bat. So in addition to that, now my parents have given me permission to trust this person. And our entire lives as kids, we're always told, trust and respect your elders, listen to them, do what they say, don't question them. So I was walking into this situation, not even knowing that anything bad could happen. As little kids, we always believe that adults are right and they're going to do the right thing and they're going to protect us. That's what we're brought up to believe. So I would go over to this friend's house. They would come over to mine and, we would play. That was normal. Well, when I had kids over to my house, my parents, they would observe the game. They would watch it. My mom would, she would pay attention. I mean, she would wash the dishes or something and watch us in the backyard, make sure we didn't kill ourselves and, fall on our heads. But she was always an observer of the game. When I would go to my friend's house, this man, he was always an active participant in the game. If we were climbing trees, he was climbing trees. If we were playing hide and go seek, he was playing hide and go seek. So in all honesty, he was a lot cooler than my parents because he was kind of like a big little kid, only he had money and a car. So if we wanted ice cream, he would take us to get ice cream. Whereas, my parents said things like, oh, that'll spoil your dinner. This guy didn't say things. He would go take us to get ice cream and he had money in a car. So there was a way to go get there. Well, there was one particular day when I remember I was at this house and we were playing a game of hide and go seek and my friend was seeking and I was hiding and this man was hiding. And he says to me, he's like, oh, I've got this really great place, to hide. And I was like, okay. So he takes me to the crawl space of the house. Well, the crawl space of a house is typically not, the door to a crawl space is not typically that large. We're talking like, yay, big here. I mean, not that large. The light that goes into the crawl space on a typically large house does not go that far. So he removes the door and he's like, we're going to hide in here. And I'm thinking, great, I am clearly going to win this game. I might not be found forever, let's be honest, but I wasn't thinking that. I'm just thinking I'm going to win this game. And, obviously as an Olympian, I'm not competitive or anything. So, clearly that wasn't important. In addition to this, he says, you know, Margaret, I found this frog earlier and I put it under here. Like, let's see if we can find it. Well, I loved frogs. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I'm clearly going to win this game of hide and go seek. Now we're going to find a frog. This is fantastic. So for all of you, those of you people in the audience listening to this, you're probably thinking, this girl has got to be crazy. Like all of these red flags that are going off in your head right now, that's what happens to adults. I'm telling this story and all of these red flags are going off in my head. None of that happens to kids. I'm not sure that red flags exist, to be honest, but all of these red flags that happen for adults, none of that happens to little kids. Let's be honest, there was no frog. But even if there had been a frog, okay, you put a frog in a crawl space and then what, several hours later, you're going to find it? Like, that's not going to happen. But I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about the fact that the light from this crawl space went, what, like a foot into it, maybe, and the rest of this under this fairly large house was really, really dark. I didn't think of any of that. I was just excited that I was clearly going to win this game and I was going to find this frog. It's not hard to find out what kids are interested in. And this man, all he had done was he had found an interest point and two entrance points and taken me into this crawl space, and I wasn't kicking and screaming. I went willingly, happily, in fact, right? Like most kids will go where you want to take them and they're not yelling, they're not kicking. It's not this hard process. This process is called grooming, right? It's finding the interest of a child, it's gaining their trust. And it's really, really easy to do. With most kids, honestly, you just have to ask them what they like. And they'll tell you, hey, what color do you like? What's your favorite animal? In my case, it was a frog. Grooming is really, really easy to do. And it's not just the kids. Grooming usually happens with the entire family. I have good parents. If they had thought this man, you know, was this crazy psychopathic killer, you know, child molester, they clearly would not have sent me over to this house on a regular basis. Grooming happens to the whole family. They gain the trust of the parents. They gain the trust of the whole community. There's a reason why when these people are caught, there's usually kickback from the community going, wow, we never suspected it. You know, this was someone we trusted. This was, you know, somebody I've worked with for 20 or 30 years. You know, I had no idea. You know, I've had dinners with this person. I've had this person over to my house. These people are really good at what they do. And it's because they gain the trust of those around them, because they realize to do the devious things that they want to do, they have to gain people's trust. So that's what grooming is. Well, on that particular day, I was really, really lucky. Nothing happened. I honestly don't remember why. I don't remember if my friend found us. I don't know if the guy got spooked, but nothing happened. Well, I was lucky in a couple of different ways. So my abuse went on for a couple of years and then it ended. It ended when I was 7 years old, not because of anything that I did. This family moved away. I don't know why they moved away. I don't know if this guy's job changed or what, but they moved and they left. Well, I didn't tell anybody. And I didn't tell anybody because he asked me not to. In school, you learn pretty early on that being a snitch is bad. So when this guy asked me not to tell anybody, I was like, wow, an adult is trusting me with a really big secret. So I didn't tell anybody. And I didn't tell anybody for a number of years. We all learned that, you know, being able to hold on to a secret and keep a secret, that's a good thing. So when an adult, when someone in power, when someone that you trust ask you to keep on to something and to trust something, usually we're honored with that and we think that that's a good thing. So I didn't tell anybody. Well, in Huntsville, Alabama, the National Children's Advocacy Center was the advocacy center that I ultimately ended up going to. We had sexual abuse education, which was extremely rare in the 90s. So I was very, very lucky that I actually had sexual abuse education in schools. And I cannot say how important that is. I mean, there's places today that don't have sexual abuse education. So I was really, really lucky that when I was in 5th grade, we had a series of videos that we watched in school. And I remember getting really, really uncomfortable during those videos. I didn't completely connect the dots on my own, but I knew something was going on. So at the great age of 11, you know, my friend and we're walking around the block in my neighborhood, starting to talk about boys, you know, who do we have a crush on in our class, you know, that kind of thing. And for whatever reason, I decided to tell, my best friend, what had happened to me. And she looked at me and she said, Margaret, you know, I think you were molested. Well, I can tell you, molested is not a word in your everyday 11-year-old's vocabulary. I guarantee neither of us could have spelled that word. Um, and, in addition to knowing what it was, I mean, this is what's so beautiful about that education. She knew first and foremost what the word was and what had happened. And then the next thing I'm about to say was so amazing is she said, you need to go tell your parents. Basically the message is you need to tell a trusted adult. In my case, that was my parents. And then after that, the next thing I can say that was amazing is I was just like, you're you're right. I should do that. Why didn't I think of that? And the fact that I thought that in and of itself is amazing. There's so many kids that for whatever reason they can't tell their parents. Maybe their parents are the offender, or maybe they're scared or they don't think their parents will believe them. It never ever crossed my mind that my parents wouldn't believe me. I knew that they would believe me. And that statement right there is so important and so amazing. Talk to your kids, form that relationship. Your kids should always know that they can come to you with anything, even something as scary as sexual abuse. So that afternoon, I decided to go home and tell my mom. And her first clue that something was wrong was that it was a beautiful day outside, and she had this border that she was wallpapering around the corner of the edges of her bedroom. And I volunteered to help, so she should have known something was up because I was offering to do chores instead of play outside. But anyways, for the next several hours, I helped her wallpaper this border around her bedroom, and she was so amazing, and she just listened. As an adult, I've gone back and I've asked my mom, like, how did you know what to do? And she didn't. She had no idea. But, she just sat there and said, I just had this feeling that you needed to get it out. And I was so scared that if you didn't say it all at once, you might clam up again and never say it. So she did the right thing. She didn't panic. She didn't freak out. She didn't get mad. She just said kind of the little feeder words. She kind of nodded and said, okay, enough so that I knew she was paying attention and listening. But mostly just encouraged me to continue talking. So, afterwards, I think we went and got ice cream or something like that. And, after I had unburdened myself and, I went out to go play and then, ruined her day and she was, left to deal with this and destroyed in her bedroom. I then left her and kind of she had to figure out what to do with it. Well, when I was a little kid, I used to ask a lot of questions. How does this happen? Or why does this happen? Or, I just ask questions all the time about everything. And whenever my mom didn't have a ready-made answer or a solution to whatever the question or problem is that I was asking, she would just say like, oh, I learned that in mommy school. And I was kind of just like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. Like, I mean, I was in school, so, I completely believed and assumed that mommy school was like a thing, and it made total sense to me that she had learned things in mommy school. I never stopped to think about though, when does mommy school occur? Like, is that a class in high school or like a class in college, or is it kind of like grad school? Does it happen like in between high school and college? Like, I never thought about like, when does mommy school happen? But I totally believed it was a thing. And so, it was a phenomenal answer. But mommy school doesn't cover what do you do when your kid's been sexually abused. So my mom did what most parents would do when they have absolutely no idea what they're supposed to do with something like this. She called 911. She called the police, and said, hey, my child has been sexually abused. What am I supposed to do with this information? I mean, she knew she had to do something. She knew that this was important and she needed to do something, but she wasn't honestly sure what to do. So, actually one step before that, she told my dad, because at that point in time, I had told my mother. So she told my dad. And then of course, the first thing they did, I have an older sister who had babysat for this family. So they sat her down and made sure it hadn't happened to her. Then they called the police. And luckily it hadn't happened to my sister. It was just me. So they sent some detectives to the house. And these detectives said, you're going to go to the advocacy center. Right. And they kind of said, this is what you're going to do. These are going to be the next couple of steps that happen. And, they gave my parents a plan, like a very basic plan of this is sort of what happens next. So we went to the advocacy center. And I love that video that we just showed, because the very first thing they talk about is the mother and the daughter sitting in the car. And man, do I remember that. I remember sitting in the car with my mom, and we weren't sitting there at the beginning of the day because, we weren't the first people there. But I remember sitting in that car for 30, 45 minutes before going in. And that was the hardest part because I was so terrified that somebody was going to see us walking in and somebody was going to know why we were there. And it was on a residential street, so it wasn't like there was a lot of chance of anyone seeing me go in. But I had to be sure. And I remember looking both ways and just watching that, what if somebody was out watching, walking their dog or something. And we just sat there and waited until I was ready. And then we went in, and that was the hardest part. And then once I got in, everything was so easy. And that's the number one thing I remember. I remember how easy it was. And honestly, how untraumatic it was. As a kid, I didn't know all the things that went on behind the scenes, and I wasn't supposed to. I didn't know about the multidisciplinary team. I didn't know how many people work to make it easy, but it was. It was comforting and it was warm. And most importantly, it wasn't scary. As an adult, I've gone back and I've seen behind the scenes, I've seen behind the curtain, and I've learned about the multidisciplinary team and all the different people that work in Advocacy Center. You've got your detectives, you've got the DA, you've got your forensic interviewer and your medical examiner, you've got the psychologist, you've got so many different parts, and there's people I'm leaving out, but there's so many different people that work to make this such a smooth and easy thing for the kids and to make it not traumatic, which it wasn't. But it's not just about the kids, it's about the parents too, it's about the family. Again, as an adult, I've talked to my mom a lot about her experience because, I know what my experience was. And I remember my mom kind of saying, Margaret, as a kid or as a parent, you kind of want to feel like you're in the driver's seat, with your kid. For the most thing, you want to be in charge of what your kid's life is doing and the decisions and just kind of how their kid, their life is going. And she said, for the first time, I didn't want to be in the driver's seat. Not only did I not want to be in the driver's seat, I didn't know where the car was going. I didn't know where the car was. I didn't even know where the keys to the car was. Like, I didn't know how to get in the car, and that was the first time as a parent, I just was clueless. And my mom's name is Elizabeth. And she just said, this was a place where the Advocacy Center just kind of took her aside and said, okay, Elizabeth, like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go home tonight and you're going to cook dinner. And this is how you're going to put your family and your life back together. This is how you're going to take your 11-year-old daughter, who's maybe not acting a little bit normal, and you're going to get her back to acting like a normal 11-year-old girl. So that's what an advocacy center does. They help the kids, but they help the family, and they just make everybody whole again. Sexual abuse is not the end of the world. It's a road bump. It's a large road bump. I'll give you that. And that transition from going from a victim to a survivor, it's not easy, but that's what an advocacy center does, is it helps people go from being victims to survivors. I genuinely believe that anybody can reach their goals and their dreams. Road bumps sometimes make it a little bit harder, but they don't make it impossible. Whatever your dreams are, and everybody's dreams and goals are going to be different. Some people are going to want to be Olympians. Some people want to be CEOs. Your goal could just be to have a happy marriage, right? Sometimes your goal is honestly just to make it through the day. I mean, we have different goals at different times. Whatever those goals are, I genuinely believe that everybody can make it. Surviving and healing, it's not an end result. It's not a destination. It's an ongoing process. I remember at the time, my mom saying, it's really hard right now, but it's going to get a little bit easier every single day. You're going to be a little bit farther away from it. And that's true. Everybody at some point or another has been in a relationship and has been through a breakup. And right after that breakup, you'll probably have some kind of a song that reminds you of whatever the person, the breakup, whatever. And when you hear that song, you're going to feel some kind of emotion, happiness, sadness, anger, whatever the emotion is. For the time that that song is on, you're going to hear it. Well, right after that breakup, it's probably going to be a pretty intense emotion, and the song's going to end, and you might feel that emotion for a while after it's over. Well, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you're driving your car, you hear that same song. You're probably still going to think of that person, and you're going to feel some kind of emotion. Well, when the song's over, another song starts, and then you leave that emotion behind and you move on to whatever the next song is. Right? To me, that's what the goal is. It's not to get to the point where you don't feel anything or you don't have any emotion, right? It's to get to the point where you experience that emotion, for 3 minutes instead of 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 years, right? It's an ongoing process. It's a bump in the road. But again, whatever those goals are, you can always reach them. And it's places like the Advocacy Center that help you get there. It's never too late. It's never too late to start that journey of healing. So please, I cannot say this enough, donate, support. It's a community effort. I know you guys have been through a lot recently, but it's so, so important. Ooh, from somebody who's been through an advocacy center, this is where I get emotional. Please, please, please help. Thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them. And this is the time. So thank you guys again for listening to my story and for tuning in today.
Well, Margaret, it's been great to talk to you. We do have some questions.
I am.
All right. Great conversation. I like this. So the first one we have is actually from Michael in Medford. How do you think the National Children's Advocacy Center changed your life? I know you touched on this a little bit, but let's kind of go into that and maybe that moment leading forward from there.
I think the way they changed my life was they just started that process of healing, right? I got into therapy, right away at 11 years old, and pretty much from the get-go, they let me know that it wasn't my fault. And I think immediately, as soon as people can learn that it's not their fault, that is so, so important, because this is something that's done to you. You don't choose this. Nobody chooses to be abused. And so I think as soon as somebody can learn that, that's how you start that process towards healing. I am a huge believer in that journey of going from victim to survivor. And honestly, the first step is choosing to do it. You make that choice that you want to be a survivor. And I think going to places like the Advocacy Center, that's your first step. You are choosing yourself, and you are deciding to choose to survive and to choose to heal.
Excellent. This is from Susan from Medford. What advice would you give adults on how they should or maybe should not react when abuse is disclosed?
I think the biggest thing is try to stay as calm as you can. I know that's easier said than done, but the biggest thing is kids just want, or adults, whoever's disclosing to you, they just want an open ear, right? So first and foremost, let them talk, let them say what they need to say, and let them know that you're hearing them, and let them know that you believe them and that you support them, right? Regardless of your reaction, they're going to kind of test the waters, and they're going to put feelers out to see what your reaction is going to be. And if they feel like for whatever reason you don't believe them, they're going to clam up and they're not going to say anything. So the first thing is, I think, just letting them know that you believe what they're saying. And then beyond that, if you can just kind of try to stay calm so that they can continue talking. I think sometimes if your reaction's really intense, like that anger, I mean, even though it's completely justified, that can frighten someone, just especially depending on the age. So trying to stay calm, but first and foremost, just showing that support, that you're there for them and you believe them.
Absolutely. Are there programs, and this is from Mickey in Grants Pass, are there programs to help identify sexual abuse?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm actually in a training video for adults with an organization called Darkness to Light, And the training video is called Stewards of Children, and it's free. You can take it. There's ways to look it up online, but there's training for adults, for children, that help you look for the steps. So there's absolutely information out there, and I'm sure there's information locally as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we do. That's accessible through the Child's Advocacy Center here as well.
Yes.
One more question from John from Jacksonville. Where did you find the courage to tell your mom and your dad, and what were your fears about that?
Having my 11-year-old friend say you should tell your parents, I mean, that was amazing. I was so lucky that, like I said, we had that education in schools. I could not say enough how important that is. And that she knew to say that. And then again, I had that relationship with my parents, so that when she did say that, it never occurred to me that I couldn't say that. And that was a relationship that didn't necessarily start with anything like to do with sexual abuse, but from an early age, my parents had always said, both my mother and my father, you can talk to us about anything. There's no stupid questions. You can ask us anything. And so I had been brought up in a household where, one, I did ask a lot of questions. And two, I knew that I could ask questions. Kids will ask questions and they don't always know what they're asking. I had actually asked my mom in about 4th grade what a condom was. I'd come home from school, and their little boy in class had been talking about it, and I very sincerely had no idea. And so I came home after school, asked my mom, what is a condom? And for all I knew, it was like, some exotic fruit or something I'd never heard of. And my mom did the exact right thing. She didn't panic. I mean, she didn't get mad. She didn't yell at me and say, "Why are you asking this?" Right? She very calmly explained to me what it was in an age appropriate way. I mean, honestly, the best thing is I have no idea what she said. I don't remember. And I don't remember because it wasn't traumatic. I mean, she gave enough of an answer, because if she hadn't explained it, I would have continued needling her and asking questions. So she clearly gave me enough of an answer that I was satisfied, but I know it was age appropriate. And because I didn't get in trouble, that continued to build that relationship that I then knew when I had something important to say, I could talk to her and I wasn't going to get in trouble. And the same was true with my father. I mean, I chose my mother to disclose because it was more comfortable. I mean, I'm 37 and I don't want to talk to my dad about sex now under the best of circumstances. But I know that I can. I've always known that I could talk to my father. It just was more comfortable in that moment as an 11-year-old to talk to my mom.
Thank you so much, and thank you for answering those questions. I believe we have a testimonial video, so thank you again so much for all you do to bring awareness to child abuse. We wanted to show some videos of kind of what goes on here.
Absolutely, thank you.
I encourage each and every one of you to give what you can to help the children of Jackson County in the situations they find themselves with a variety of different kinds of abuse, meaning emotional abuse and physical abuse and other kinds of abuse that is wrecking their young lives as far as being a stable people as they grow older. And so therefore, dig deep and find as much as you can to donate to this worthwhile organization.
So my name is Rick O'Callahan. I'm the Vice President of General Credit Service in Medford. I've been employed by the company for 15 years. I started as a collector. I elevated, worked my way up through the company. Yeah, that comes from our leadership team. Our president, Lauren Rignani, super giving person. I couldn't ask for somebody better to work for. Great individual. I think her love for the CAC has just kind of trickled down through our company. It's been a good thing, a giving thing that my wife started a program that does payroll deduct for you guys, and we're able to give as much as possible through our company payroll deduct. And yeah, I love, I'm also the head baseball coach at Eagle Point. I love working with kids. I think, you know, as a community, we all have kids or we have grandkids that we need to take care of. And having an organization like the CAC right in downtown Medford is something that we should all be proud of and should be supportive of. We all have children here, grandchildren here. I think what the CAC is able to provide for the county is totally invaluable. The services that are provided here are specialized, one-of-a-kind treatments by professionals who work in the environment of sex abuse, and I think to have something right in downtown that we can give back to our children, the ones that fly under the radar that we don't know about, that we can help, anything that we could do to that nature. I would just welcome you to open your arms, let the CAC in. You know, if it's your wallets or if it's your time, if it's volunteering, if there's anything that you could do to help the CAC, I would recommend that you do so. So we are in a national pandemic, and I realize that that everybody's hands are tied. There's nothing that we can do. There's no quick fix. The children at CAC, though, don't have anywhere to go. There's nowhere to hide. The only place that they can go is here. This place is always going to welcome, despite a pandemic, with open arms. They're going to do everything that they can to support the children of Jackson County. And I would just ask that you give anything possible. The CAC is run by donation through grants, and without the community of Jackson County, we wouldn't have this wonderful center here.
I am Catherine Zern, and I am a therapist here. I'm the therapy director at this time, and this is Fancy, and she is our program assistance dog that was provided to us by Dogs for Better Lives. And how we support the agency, well, we work a lot and we feel very committed to our work here at the agency. I think one way that I support the CAC is that I am committed to this model of working with children who've experienced some form of maltreatment or endangerment. And I also have the opportunity in my position to support community partners, including police, sheriff, child welfare, and schools. And that is, we make every effort to reach out and cooperate and collaborate with other wonderful agencies in the area. So one of the marvelous things about the Children's Advocacy Center movement is to have agencies that work with children collaborating together, and the multidisciplinary team that meets here at the Children's Advocacy Center is a wonderful example of that, where our police and sheriffs, DA, schools, mental health, and CASA are all able to sit down at the table together to provide the most comprehensive and full view of services for a child who's experienced, been the victim of a crime or of neglect. Well, we know we're in extremely challenging times, and there are needs on every level, and people are in survival mode. And the reality is abuse doesn't stop, unfortunately, and particularly in times where there's this level of societal stress. So the Children's Advocacy Center continues to rely on the support of the community, and we are in extremely trying times, And the needs are enormous right now in our community and in neighboring communities and throughout the country. However, unfortunately, child abuse continues, and it is even, and children are even more at risk in this time of difficulty. So we depend on your support, and whether it's financial or whether it's volunteering or whether it's spreading the word about what we do here, your support is needed and welcome.
Well, ever since I can remember, I've wanted to work with, work in the community, serving the community and serving vulnerable populations through going to school and then starting a professional career in a different organization. I realized that one of the most vulnerable populations in our community is children. And what I love specifically about being at the Children's Advocacy Center is that so many times children are put to the side, children are not believed, children are discredited. I think we all know and have heard the phrase, children should be seen and not heard. And I feel that in my position here at the Children's Advocacy Center, both as a bilingual forensic interviewer and as a case manager, I am able to provide that listening ear. In a forensic interview, I'm able to sit in front of a child and listen to them without judgment, sometimes for the first time in their lives. As an advocate, I'm able to sit with teenagers and with caregivers and parents and listen to them and let them process and talk about whatever it is that they need. And to be able to bring that to the community is something very special to me. I feel like I'm able to work hands-on for such an important and vulnerable population, and the experience and work that I have and do here is invaluable to me. I think it's incredibly important for the community to support the Children's Advocacy Center for a couple different reasons. One, it is part of our mission statement that this Children's Advocacy Center wants to see communities that are keeping children safe and families strong. And that is something that cannot be done by just one person or just one organization. I believe that people in the community, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm saying, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna restart that. It's okay. I think it's very important for people in the community to support the Children's Advocacy Center. Part of our mission statement or part of our vision statement here at the Children's Advocacy Center is to have a community that has safe children and strong families. And that is something that cannot be achieved only by one person or only by one organization. It is something that needs the help of the entire community. Any sort of help that you can provide can be invaluable for the children and families that we see, whether that is monetary donations to help us provide specific services for our family, whether that's volunteering and sitting with a child before and after an interview, providing donations such as clothing for someone who has just left an abusive household. All of those things matter and are important and are things that we can use to help support our families and our children. Child abuse, I believe, is an issue for the entire community. And because of that, it takes an entire community to solve it and to help these children heal from the abuse that they have experienced.
Hi, my name is Rochelle DeForest. I'm a therapist here at the Children's Advocacy Center. And boy, we're talking about what I do and why I do it. So I work with children who have experienced neglect and trauma. And those are varying degrees and situations that you can probably imagine. So when children come into my office, they usually have a lot of symptoms like they have bad dreams, they have bad memories and flashbacks. They might have depression and sadness. They might have anxiety and worries. They might have anger and irritability. So one of the first things that I try to do is help children learn to soothe themselves. So we practice several techniques for that in here. One is called 5-4-3-2-1, where you think of 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and something you can taste. And so that children can learn that when they're activated, they can use their senses to calm down. Another technique we use is called ABCDE, which A is for awareness, B is for breathing, C is for counting, D is for distance, and E is for expressing. So sometimes we make posters where we put all of that and then we decorate it. So kids have a way of remembering, here's something I can do when I'm starting to get activated. One thing that's really important is for children to have a voice. So we try to teach them to identify their feelings. One way we do that is with a technique called Be the Pond. So you can imagine a pond with lots of fish in it, and each one of the fish is like a feeling. So there's the sad fish and the happy fish, the scared fish, the worried fish, and lots of different feelings, right? So we ask the child to be the pond, which means we're helping that child to build the observer in themselves, to be able to identify their feelings. And then the next step in that is for them to learn to tolerate their feelings, for them to understand that their feelings will not overwhelm them, that they can have a feeling of being afraid or angry or sad, but it's okay because that feeling is going to pass, and they also have tools for dealing with that feeling. This year, 2020, has been one of the most stressful years that I can ever remember. We have, of course, COVID-19 happening. We have kids who are not physically in school where they have access to teachers or other caregivers. We have children who are experiencing problems because of the fires and because of smoke. Something close to 3,000 families have lost their homes in the Rogue Valley in the last couple of weeks. And so everyone in our community is especially stressed out, including parents, and sometimes those stressors lead to more abuse. They might lead to more neglect. And in this particular time, we don't have as many eyes on children as we usually do. So we're very concerned that abuse is happening in our community and we're not able to always know about it like we usually are when kids are in school. So we actually need your help now more than ever because we feel that there are so many children in our community who need our assistance. They need to be interviewed by skilled forensic interviewers. They need to have therapy with skilled therapists who are providing a nurturing and caring space for them. And the ability for children to have consistent access to a caring adult, a therapist, or someone in our center is incredibly important because children can feel a sense of inner security when they know that someone cares about them. So we see children of all ages. Our youngest are sometimes about 3 or 4, and we also have kids all the way up to about 18. We really want to be able to provide what children need, and so we really appreciate and need your help. And it means so much to us, and it means so much to the children in our community, as well as their families, that they get the help that they need.
My why I do this work, why I believe in the CAC is that I believe in the work and the power of the multidisciplinary team to help heal children who have suffered abuse. The interventions, the holistic approach that we use to intervening in the lives of children who have suffered abuse is evidence-based, it is proven to have worked, and it provides children the opportunity to meet their potential. It heals, it provides them a voice. We are the place where small voices are heard. Child abuse is a community problem, and it really deserves a community response. We can't do this by ourselves. We know we are totally built from a grassroots foundation. We depend on a teaming model. We team with others. We partner and collaborate with others to be able to really make a difference. And we know that this works. We have the opportunity as a community to really change our future. By providing these services, by having the opportunity to provide these services and these programs to these children that have been who've suffered abuse, with these interventions, we know that we're building stronger communities with stronger families in a community where children matter.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody who spoke in that video. Just amazing what's going on here. Next, I would like to introduce Karen Doolin. Karen moved to Medford in 1995. One of her first priorities was to find an organization. Beginning as an advocate in 1996, she then became a board member later that year and served until 2012. She continues her involvement at the CAC by serving on the advisory committee. Karen?
Thank you, Matt. And on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank Matt Jordan from KOBI for serving as our MC today. CAC and the children of Jackson County need our help. Today, some of you will be making your first financial commitment to CAC. Others of us will be renewing our commitment to CAC. By coming together to make our donations, we are giving the gifts of hope and healing to all the children that come to CAC for services. There are 4 different ways that you can make a contribution today. One is by clicking on the link to the Facebook Live page. You also may click on the link to the YouTube Live page. You may text Cherish 2020 at 44321 or call Bobby Abernathy at 541-734-5437 extension 1000. We want to thank the staff, the board, and the volunteers that made today's event possible. And finally, thanks to each and every one of you for joining in today's special virtual Cherish Your Child event. Remember that each of you are the hope that can heal. Your dedication to being with us today means that you are making a very positive difference in the lives of Jackson County's children. Thank you for attending, and may the rest of your day go very well.